Picture this. An ordinary Thursday in Albuquerque becomes extraordinary when a simple act of honesty creates ripples that touch hearts across the nation. When a famous actor loses something precious, and an 11-year-old boy faces a choice that could change his family's life forever, what happens next will restore your faith in humanity. This is BUP Stories, bringing you real tales of inspiration from everyday Americans. If this incredible story moves you, please hit that like button, subscribe for more heartwarming content, and let us know your thoughts below. It was an ordinary Thursday morning in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The desert air carried its familiar crispness, while golden sunlight bathed Central Avenue in warmth. Vin Diesel, the action movie legend famous for the Fast and Furious films, was enjoying a rare moment of normalcy. Taking a break from his hectic Hollywood schedule, he'd come to town for a quiet promotional event, but chose to spend his morning simply wandering the streets like any regular person. Dressed casually in a gray hoodie, dark denim, and aviators, Vin blended into the crowd as he visited a local cafe near Old Town Plaza. After grabbing coffee and a breakfast burrito, he strolled through the peaceful residential areas, savoring the anonymity that his fame rarely allowed. It was the kind of morning that makes you feel wonderfully ordinary again. But as he walked, tucking his wallet back into his pocket after paying for coffee, he didn't notice it hadn't gone all the way in. Somewhere between the cafe and Rio Grande Boulevard, his wallet slipped unnoticed to the pavement. On the other side of town, in a humble neighborhood on Albuquerque's west side, 11-year-old Thomas Alvarez was wrapping up another shift bussing tables at a neighborhood diner. This wasn't unusual for Thomas. He'd been taking on small jobs since age 9, from sweeping church floors to helping elderly neighbors with their groceries, always trying to contribute however he could. Thomas was a thin boy with gentle eyes, dark hair, and a maturity that made adults take notice. 3 years had passed since his parents died in a tragic drunk driving accident, leaving him in the care of his grandmother, Mrs. Rosa Alvarez. Rosa, a former school librarian battling arthritis and living on a modest pension, did everything she could to provide for Thomas despite their challenges. Their small duplex wasn't much. The roof leaked during rainstorms, and their old heating system struggled through New Mexico's cold nights. But they maintained their traditions, sharing dinner each evening, offering prayers of gratitude, and reading together from Rosa's collection of worn library books. As Thomas took his usual shortcut, home, something brown and leather caught his attention near the curb. Bending down, he discovered a wallet, weathered but clearly expensive. Opening it carefully, he found several $100s in cash, a California driver's license, various credit cards, and a carefully folded letter written in elegant script. He studied the license and read the name slowly. Mark Sinclair Vincent, Vin Diesel. Thomas blinked in surprise. The name was familiar from conversations he'd overheard among older boys at the diner talking about action movies. Fast and Furious, XXX. But finding a celebrity's wallet in his neighborhood seemed impossible. Sitting on the curb, Thomas held the wallet tightly and stared at the money. It was enough to repair their broken heater, buy groceries for weeks, maybe even help Rosa with the bills she constantly worried about. His stomach churned as he wrestled with temptation. When Thomas arrived home, the sun was setting. Rosa sat in her favorite chair by the window, working on her knitting. Without a word, Thomas placed the wallet on their small table. "Abuela," he said softly, "I found something important." Rosa adjusted her reading glasses and examined it. When he showed her the identification, her eyebrows rose in amazement. "Vin Diesel," she said with surprise. "Mijo, this belongs to someone very famous." Thomas nodded gravely. "I know, and there's quite a bit of money inside." Rosa could see the internal struggle written across her grandson's face. "What will you do, Thomas?" "I'm not sure," he admitted quietly. "This could really help us. You wouldn't need to stress about money for a while, but it doesn't belong to us." "No, it doesn't," Rosa agreed gently. "I want to make the right choice, but I needed to talk with you first." Rosa reached across the table and took his hands in hers. "We choose what's right even when nobody's looking, mijo. You already know this." Thomas exhaled slowly and nodded. "Can we figure out how to give it back?" Using their neighbor Mrs. Henderson's phone and some internet research, Rosa and Thomas managed to locate contact information for Vin Diesel's representatives in Los Angeles. Thomas nervously left a voicemail explaining that he'd found the wallet and wanted to return it personally to Mr. Diesel. They didn't anticipate such a quick response, but the very next morning, Vin's assistant called back. She confirmed that Mr. Diesel had indeed lost his wallet and insisted on meeting the young man who found it himself. That Saturday, Thomas and Rosa waited anxiously at Tanner Park, a peaceful tree-lined area near the Museum of Natural History. Thomas wore his nicest jeans and a crisp white shirt that Rosa had carefully pressed. She sat beside him on a bench, hands folded neatly, both of them nervous. Shortly after 10 a.m., a black SUV arrived. No fanfare, no entourage, just Vin Diesel, stepping out in jeans and a black t-shirt, approaching them with a warm, genuine smile. "Thomas?" he asked. Thomas stood and nodded respectfully. "Yes, sir." Vin crouched down to meet Thomas at eye level. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." Thomas carefully pulled the wallet from his backpack and handed it over. "I didn't take anything, I promise." Vin quickly checked the contents. Everything was there: the cards, the cash, and most importantly, the precious letter from his mother. He held it for a moment, clearly moved. "You have no idea how much this means to me," Vin said softly. "That letter inside is from my mother. She died when I was in my 20s. I carry it with me everywhere." Thomas looked down. "I didn't read it. I could tell it was something special." Vin smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "You made the right choice. That shows me exactly who you are." Thomas hesitated, then spoke in a small voice. "I didn't come here expecting anything. I just have one request." Vin raised an eyebrow. "Of course, anything." Thomas looked up, his voice trembling slightly. "Could I have a hug? Just one? I haven't had a hug from a father figure since I lost mine." Vin froze momentarily. The park fell completely silent. Rosa covered her mouth, tears already forming in her eyes. Without hesitation, Vin stepped forward and embraced Thomas in a firm, heartfelt hug. He held the boy for a long moment, one hand gently resting on his head. Thomas held on tightly, and for that powerful instant it felt like something precious had been restored to both of them. When Vin stepped back, his voice was thick with emotion. "You just gave me something I didn't realize I needed." He turned to Rosa. "You've raised an exceptional young man, truly one of the finest I've encountered." Rosa smiled through her tears. "I simply tried to teach him to live with dignity, regardless of our circumstances." Vin looked at Thomas again. "You remind me of myself at your age. I lost my father, too, and I understand that weight you carry." Sitting down on the park bench beside Thomas, surrounded by the scent of cottonwood trees in the warm New Mexico air, Vin's voice became gentler, stripped of any Hollywood persona. "When I was your age, we didn't have much either. My mother worked endless hours just like your abuela does. We could barely make rent. Some nights we went to bed hungry, but what we had, what kept us strong, was each other. That kind of love makes you resilient, even when everything feels overwhelming." Thomas absorbed every word intently. Vin continued, "I'm sure it was tempting. That money could have solved a lot of problems, right?" Thomas nodded slowly. "I thought about it. We haven't had proper heat all winter, and I wanted to surprise Abuela with her medications, maybe fix our leaky roof." His voice trailed off, then returned stronger. "But I just couldn't do it. It wasn't mine, and I remembered what she always tells me. Doing what's right is how you keep your soul clean." Vin leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "That's wisdom most adults never learn to live by. You have something rare, Thomas, true character, and your grandmother is clearly a woman of both grace and strength." Rosa, listening quietly, smiled with deep pride. "Thomas has always had a good heart. His parents were the same way. When we lost them, he had to mature faster than any child should. But I told him, no matter what we lose, we never lose who we are. After a thoughtful pause, Vin looked at Thomas. I want to do something for you. Not because you asked, but because you didn't. He stood and made a quick phone call to his team, then returned to the bench. Give me a couple of days. Let me arrange something. You won't have to worry about the heater or the roof anymore. But more importantly, I want to stay in contact. You remind me why I began acting, to tell stories about people like you, about family, about heart. Thomas's eyes widened in amazement. You really mean that? Vin nodded firmly. I do. And I never break my promises. They spent another 30 minutes together in the park, talking not as celebrity and fan, but as people connected through shared pain, understanding, and unexpected hope. Before leaving, Vin asked Thomas about his interests. I love reading, Thomas replied. Abuela reads to me. Every evening, even the old books with yellowed pages and torn covers. Vin grinned. Perfect. I'll make sure you receive a whole collection of new ones. The kind that transport you to different worlds when you can't afford to travel. 2 days later, a delivery van arrived at the Alvarez home. It brought groceries, warm winter clothing, space heaters, and comfortable new beds. But there was something even more significant inside a sealed envelope addressed to Mrs. Rosa Alvarez. A job offer from the local public library system. Vin had used his connections to help. Rosa was offered part-time work as a literacy coordinator, something that wouldn't strain her health, but would allow her to return to what she loved. Reading and teaching. Rosa held the letter with trembling hands. I don't know how to thank him, she whispered. Thomas hugged her tightly. You already did by raising me the way you have. The story might have remained private between them, but sometimes quiet moments are meant to reach the world. Mrs. Concepcion, their neighbor across the street, had been walking her dog when she witnessed the emotional embrace between Thomas and Vin in the park. Moved by what she saw, she recorded a brief video and posted it to Facebook with a simple caption. A young boy from Albuquerque reminded a movie star what really matters today. Within 24 hours, the video had been shared over 100,000 times. National news picked up the story. Morning shows requested interviews. Hashtags like Daikcha, Kiraishwashadin, Konokir, Honesty in Albuquerque, and Thomas and Vin began trending across social media platforms. People from rural Iowa to Harlem, New York, were touched by Thomas's integrity. Television talk shows featured segments about the story. Comment sections overflowed with responses. Faith in humanity restored. This child has more honor than most adults. His grandmother deserves recognition too. Vin Diesel posted about it on Instagram with a photo of himself and Thomas sitting on the bench together. His caption read, He didn't ask for money. He didn't seek fame. All he wanted was a hug, and he gave me something I'll treasure forever. That single post received millions of likes and comments, inspiring several celebrities to donate to children's literacy programs and family support organizations in New Mexico. Soon after, the mayor of Albuquerque personally called Rosa, offering Thomas a citation of honor for his honesty and inviting the family to a citywide celebration of youth leadership. At the event, Thomas stood shyly behind a podium wearing a second-hand blazer a neighbor had lent him for the occasion. Looking out at the crowd of reporters, city officials, teachers, and families, he said, I never thought returning a wallet would make such a difference, but I guess kindness still has power. I just wanted to do something my parents would be proud of, something my abuela taught me. I hope other kids remember this. Being honest, even when it's difficult, makes you stronger. The applause was thunderous and sustained. Rosa sat in the front row, tears streaming down her cheeks, her heart overflowing with pride and gratitude. After the ceremony, Vin met with them privately once more, this time carrying a stack of books, as promised, and 2 scholarship certificates, one for Thomas and another for any future college-bound family member, issued through a foundation he supported in Los Angeles. You gave me an incredible gift that day, Thomas, Vin said. Now it's my turn to give you opportunities. Wherever life takes you, whatever you become, this world needs more people like you." Thomas didn't say much. He simply nodded, clutching the books against his chest, tears shining in his wide brown eyes. For a boy who had grown up with so little, that moment felt like everything. In the following weeks, life at the Alvarez home began to change. Not dramatically or flashily, but in steady, meaningful ways. The old heating system was replaced with an efficient, quiet model. The roof no longer leaked during storms, and Rosa no longer faced the impossible choice between groceries and medication. Thomas, still the same humble boy at heart, continued helping at the diner on weekends. But he walked with new confidence. Not because of the attention, but because he felt truly seen. For the first time, someone outside his neighborhood had recognized his choices, his quiet strength, and validated them. His connection with Vin continued beyond the media frenzy. Every week, Thomas received calls from Vin, sometimes just checking in, other times discussing books, life, or school progress. Vin sent him classic literature. To Kill a Mockingbird of Mice and Men, the Fraught Call of the Wild. Thomas devoured each book, often reading aloud to Rosa in the evenings while she knitted by the window. One day, a package arrived containing a leather-bound journal with a note inside. "Write your own story someday, kid. The world needs to hear it. Vin." At school, Thomas's teachers noticed changes. Not in his academic performance. He had always excelled, despite challenges, but in his presence and participation. He spoke up more in class, volunteered to help younger students with reading, and became a quiet leader admired not for popularity, but for humility. His classmates began treating him with genuine respect, not because of his celebrity connection, but because they recognized he had demonstrated something most people, especially children, might not have the courage to do. The media attention eventually subsided, but the impact of Thomas's actions continued spreading. Inspired by his story, a group of Albuquerque parents created a youth program called The Thomas Way, focused on teaching integrity, service, and personal responsibility to children from underserved communities. Vin supported the program through his foundation, helping secure funding for after-school activities, mentorship programs, and summer camps, emphasizing leadership through kindness. Rosa was invited to serve on the advisory board, frequently speaking at meetings about raising Thomas with nothing but love, faith, and the unwavering belief that right is always right, regardless of life's difficulties. Then came an official letter bearing the New Mexico governor's office seal. Inside was an invitation for Thomas and Rosa to attend a state ceremony recognizing outstanding acts of citizenship. Thomas would receive the Governor's Medal of Honor for Youth Integrity, one of the highest honors a child in the state could achieve. Though uncomfortable with attention, Thomas accepted quietly, understanding that his story now belonged to others, who might need reminding that goodness matters, even in silence. The ceremony took place at the New Mexico State Capitol in Santa Fe, a building Thomas had only seen on television. Wearing a dark suit borrowed from a neighbor's son and polished shoes 2 sizes too large, he wore them with dignity. As he stepped forward to receive the medal, applause filled the marble hall. His speech was brief but powerful. "Thank you for believing that someone like me could make a difference. I didn't return the wallet seeking recognition. I simply did what my parents would have wanted and what my abuela taught me. I hope this reminds other children that doing what's right isn't about being noticed, it's about staying true to yourself." The audience rose in a sustained standing ovation. In that moment, Thomas transcended being simply a boy with a good heart. He became a quiet symbol of hope in a world that often overlooks it. Months later, on a cool spring morning, Vin surprised Thomas and Rosa by appearing unannounced at their door. He'd flown in quietly, avoiding media attention, just to share breakfast with them. They made pancakes and sat around their small kitchen table, laughing like longtime friends. At one point, Vin pulled something from his jacket, a small framed copy of his mother's letter that Thomas had helped return. "This," he said, "is my most treasured possession. But it means even more now because of you." He looked directly at Thomas. "You once asked for just a hug. That was all. But you gave me something unexpected. You reminded me why kindness matters, why honesty matters. You made me a better person. Kid." Turning to Rosa, he continued, "And you, thank you for raising such an exceptional young man. You didn't just change his life, you changed mine." Rosa, deeply moved, reached for his hand. "You gave him the chance to believe in himself. That's more than most children like him ever receive." As they sat together that morning, sunlight streaming through the kitchen curtains, it felt like a perfect circle had been completed. Not a fairy tale ending filled with wealth and glamour, but a genuine, grounded conclusion rooted in love, respect, and the quiet power of goodness. Later that year, Thomas wrote an essay titled "The Day That Changed Everything" for a statewide writing competition. He didn't write about fame, money, or awards. He wrote about a wallet, a hug, and a choice. The essay won first place and was published in a national youth magazine. He concluded with words that would resonate with readers long after they finished reading. "When the world gives you the opportunity to take what isn't yours, choose to give something back instead, even if all you have to offer is your integrity." Thomas Alvarez's story didn't end in the spotlight. It continued in quiet ways, through the pages of books he read, the lives he touched, and the programs he helped inspire. And somewhere in Los Angeles, Vin Diesel kept a photograph of himself and Thomas on his office shelf, beside awards and trophies that now seemed slightly less significant, because ultimately, it wasn't the wallet, the hug, or even the headlines that mattered most. It was the reminder that integrity, no matter how small the act, creates the most powerful legacy one can leave behind. And in the heart of a boy from Albuquerque, that legacy was just beginning to unfold.